Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie, broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m, broadcasting on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Folks, it's good to see you in this great British New Year, 2023, and A Force for Good is back in the ring for another swing, no question about that. And it's going to be a great British New Year, and it's going to be a thoroughly unionist British New Year. We are going to be so unionist this year, we're going to get tired of being unionist. We're going to be so much pro-UK, we're going to be tired of being pro-UK, but we're going to keep being pro-UK, and we're going to keep being pro-UK until the Scottish nationalists realise the value of being British and of loving our great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Thank you for everybody coming in on TikTok. Please send us your comments. Good to see Ethan, who says greetings from London. SC8715 says, all right, Elvis, yes, we absolutely are. And he also gives us his thoughts for his favourite football team. Somebody thought this was Peter Capaldi. Well, do you know what? I've been mistaken for that before, and that's a funny story, which I won't get into at this precise moment. Good to see everybody coming in on our other streams as well. What a great AFFG family we have. Good to see Debbie in there. Hope things are well for you in this great British New Year. Good to see D Stanners also, who says all the best to everyone. Good to have A Force for Good back. Adam says, good evening from the great British county of Leicestershire. Send us in your thoughts and your comments. Now, we are going to be ending our Great British Yo Britannia Christmas crowdfunder at 7:30 tonight, and it's been going fairly well, I have to say. We are somewhere around 28% of what we were aiming for. We were aiming for a third of our needs. Perhaps we'll hit a third of our needs. That would be £3,000. Can we actually manage that tonight? We're a little over £400 away from hitting a third of our needs, but who knows? The crowdfunder address will be up on the screen until 7:30, and that's crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2023. DPH says, I'm a Glasgow boy who owns a shop in Unionist Wigtown. If you're ever in Dumfries and Galloway, come in. Well, I was in Dumfries and Galloway for 10 days, just outside Castle Douglas. Gaza says, look at all the angry Scottish nationalists on here. That's on TikTok. Labour Party for the win says, long live the Union. Britain is better, stronger and safer together. Also, Johnny Davidson says, answer my question and I will donate the £400. Now, I didn't see what your question was, Johnny Davidson. Why is the Scottish unicorn chained up in the British coat of arms? Well, Johnny, it's because it is a dangerous beast. It's a dangerous beast which has to be kept in some parts of mythology. However, in other parts of the British coat of arms, what you'll actually find is that the unicorn is unchained, indicating that it has broken away. So the idea of the chained unicorn is, it depends what coat of arms you're looking at, but either way, it's a positive thing. It's either so strong that it has to be contained in some way, or else it's so strong and it's broken away. But it's all good. It's all good, and it's all pro-Scottish, whatever way you look on it. So hopefully, Johnny, you'll be able to send us the £400 at crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2023. Apple user says Scotland must break away from English greed and tyranny. Well, I don't know what tyranny you're suffering under, but I'm sorry to hear that you're suffering under tyranny. let's actually emphasize here the importance of our crowdfund. I'm going to just run through some of the things that we've done this year, but let's look at some of the comments that have come up so far from people who have supported us recently. Let's read one or two of those. They're really, really good. There's Michael Lovey says, keep up the good work, everyone. Kathleen McGeorge says, good luck with the future. You can bet on that. David Clarkson says, excellent effort for all concerned. We must get rid of the festering sore that's ruining our dear old Scotland. That's for sure. Kat McCabe says, I'm absolutely delighted to be able to contribute to your crowdfunder. I truly hope my donation helps you to continue your vital work. It does, Kat. And you know what? We're going to be talking about what that donation will mean in a few moments. Dave Workman says, well done to the entire AFFG team. You are heroes. And I just want to extend that to the entire team. Absolutely. Our directors and our team that curates our social media channels every single day, whether that's TikTok, whether that's Facebook, whether that is Twitter or Instagram. Thank you. You know the hard work that you put in every day just to keep that ship steering correctly. David Marshall says, thanks for getting the truth out there. Goodness me, somebody has to put the truth out there, right? And we're doing that. Self Davis says, promote unionism, abolish devolution, dismantle SNP division. And John Sanderson says, best of British. Adam says there, funny we don't see any Scottish nationalists on Facebook. Yes, they all seem to have gone on to TikTok. DPH says he runs the Machers farm shop. We had a complaint made because we have a wee Union Jack. Do you know what? Isn't that absolutely ridiculous? Imagine somebody complaining about that. I mean, that's just so silly. So silly. So absolutely silly. And that's why we're still in the Union. Imagine what they'd be like if they got their way. Oh my goodness me. They'd police absolutely everything if they could. Get to that in a moment. Okay, let's see some more comments there that came on the crowdfunder. Robert Little says, glad to help. I'm a unionist, loyalist, royalist. Keep Scotland in the Union. Great people gave their all for this Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Respect for them, utterly. Graham Dow says, keep the faith in the Union. Ruby Jimmy says, the United Kingdom is one family. Absolutely. We are a nation of families long before we are a family of nations. We are a nation of families, quite literally a nation of families, with family members throughout the length and breadth of our great British Isles. Eric Anderson says, the nationalists are slowly but surely destroying our country bit by bit with their lunatic decisions. And Thomas says, so proud of all your work in protecting our union. And Stuart Hunter says, give the Scot Nats hell in 2023, guys. Proud of you and all your hard work. Thank you, Stuart. Kenneth Buchanan says, let's send a loud, clear message that the UK is here to stay. Absolutely. Stay in the UK, as we will always say. And Anne Clark says, keep up the good work. And Rebecca Young says, couldn't resist the big mug and tea bags. And she is referring to one of our rewards on our crowdfunder. Bob Castle says, the United Kingdom, we must not break the Union. Graham Brandon says, just because we want independence does not mean we don't like England or English. I think you may protest too much, sir. I know that some people say that, but in reality, that's not been our experience, I'm afraid to say. And it's not the lived experience of many people in Scotland. And I know that many of the Scottish nationalists will try to excuse their ideology by saying that they don't hate the English, and I hope that they are right, and some of them, of course, including yourself, sir, will no doubt be genuine about that. But the question is, what's the issue and the situation with all the others? Because, believe me, and I know, because I've met quite a few of them, they actually do hate the English. They just do. So, absolutely. And, you know, we as unionists, we tend to just the chap there talking about whether or not the Scottish nationalists hate the English, and of course some of them do, but they hate a lot more than that. There is a lot of motivated people, and they're motivated by a lot of different things, and they never stop, and many of them are possessed with a sort of revolutionary fervour, which impels them to believe that they can create some kind of heaven on earth here in Scotland. If it wasn't for, well, you name it, the English, the Union, London, Westminster, the Tories, England, not the English per se, the sovereignty of Parliament, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the alleged suppression of Scottish history when they were in primary school in the 1970s, the Union Jack, the fact that the cross of St. George is on top of the saltire rather than the other way around. That's a complaint that I've heard. The fact that Scotland doesn't have an entry in the Eurovision Song Contest. The lack of poets in the English higher exam when they were at school. The lack of Scottish poets in the English higher exam when they were at school in the 1980s. The English language in the first place. And the fact that they feel, some of them, that they have to speak it in a way in which they're understood by other people. Why should they have to do that? The poll tax, Thatcher, the milk snatcher, the Tories, did I say the Tories? But also Labour. The fact that the Tory government does nothing to stop the landslides on the Rest and Be Thankful road on that part of the A83. The fact that newspapers use the height of Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square in London as a measurement instead of, for example, a Scottish height, such as the height of the spire on the Marischal Tower in Aberdeen. Trident, especially the fact that Trident is located close to Glasgow and would kill a lot of people in Helensburgh. The fact that some Highland men had to wear trousers in the 18th century rather than kilts. Not being able to buy a fish supper with a £50 banknote when you holidayed in Hartlepool back in 1974. Edward I. And what else have we got? Vegetables from England in the supermarket. So really, we've heard all the complaints, and I know there's a lot more to come, but we like to note some of them down when they strike us. But these people, I'm afraid, are actually running the country at the moment. So if we are in any way able to fight back, one of the things that we can do is just keep this show on the road at the very least. Somebody mentions the gender bill. David Emmanuel says, a shocking, dangerous bill. SNP are woke insane. Yes, and we understand that there's going to be a demonstration against that on the Thursday, the 12th of January at noon outside the Scottish Parliament. It's nothing to do with us as such. We've just heard of it through the grapevine that it's being organised by somebody called Glasgow Cabby. And as I say, he's organising a demonstration open to all who want to demonstrate against the Gender Recognition Reform Bill. And that's on Thursday, the 12th of January at 12 o'clock. And we'd encourage anybody to go to that. As I say, it's not being organised by us, and we're not in any way formally associated with it, but happy to give it some publicity on this day in British history, because British history matters. And you know, before I talk about on this day in British history, I just want to bring attention to a really good article which I read in the Daily Telegraph by the journalist Charles Moore, who's always got a very good way of saying things, who can take an idea that many people think but find the words to express them, which is such a great skill, which of course he has got in spades. And he was talking here, the coming year is the time for the BBC to make a date with impartial history. And he's talking here about the extent to which some of the programmes on the BBC can be impartial and can be perhaps looking at history from a very slanted angle, like learning British history or whatever from a negative point of view, which is all well and good, but at the end of the day it has to be properly balanced by the overall context of things. And he asks, well, he says, it is 50 years since I studied basic history at school, but even in that distant era, I do not remember ever being told that the British Empire as a whole was marvellous. And I do recall several occasions on which I was taught that it had been bad. However, mostly what I remember is a strong historical narrative. Anglo-centric, certainly, but not cut off from world issues. I like this bit. Its power came not from its ideology, which was mostly vague, but from its chronological coherence. Chronological coherence. What a fantastic term, which means putting the dates and the times in order in a way that you can really remember and understand and explain to others as well. And he adds, the sequence of time is the framework of all history. What happens afterwards cannot affect what happened before, although it might well change our view of what happened before. So dates really matter. We learnt them often by heart. And that's what we do here at A Force for Good when we always have our On This Day in British history. It's because dates matter. And it's around dates that you can arrange the year, the British year, the unionist timeline, as we also have it. He says, the first thing we learnt was a context of consecutive facts. It was only when we approached adulthood that we started to consider historical arguments more analytically. Unfortunately, this is untypical of the way history is conveyed in the 21st century. It is not so much that pupils learn bad narratives, it is more that they learn no overall narrative, and by narrative is meant story. Woke ideology seeks to fill the vacuum. And he says, if you don't know what happened when, you are like a geographer who cannot read a map. You have no sense of where you, your time, and your country stand in relation to your subject. You have no sense of where you, your time, and your country stand in relation to your subject. And that's why dates and the correct chronological coherence of them is so important to actually understand your very own life. Your very own life. As we always say, if you don't know where you're going, it's because you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, it's because you don't know where you have been. So, on that thought, on this day in British history, what happened? Notably, on the 4th of January. Well, on the 4th of January 1967, Great Britain was killed in a very dramatic accident, and that was Donald Campbell, who was seeking to beat the world water speed record on Coniston Lake in Cumbria. And he was 45 years old, and his father was also a speed king called Malcolm Campbell. And Donald already held the record of 276.33 miles per hour, which he had set just about, 3 years before. And he was piloting his Bluebird, and he was having a second go at it. And some people say that he hadn't waited until the water had settled properly, or some people say that maybe just a bit of a wind got up and started to unsettle the water. But what happened is when he went flying along it, the boat took off, overturned, and essentially exploded, somersaulted, and broke in half, killing him instantly. And it wasn't for 44 years later, in 2001, that they actually found his body at the bottom of Coniston Lake, and he was buried that year in 2001, 44 years after he had suffered such a tragic end. And we've got a picture of Donald Campbell here, which we'll just put up. That's a reconstruction of his Bluebird by something called the Bluebird Project. And that doesn't go as fast as his old boat, but it's a nice reconstruction that they've done there. See the wee Union Jack there on the tail fin. Very nice indeed. Okay, so that was Donald Campbell, who was killed this day, 4th of January in 1967, on this day in British history. Send in your comments, folks, on TikTok, and we'll read them out. Somebody there says, what about William Wallace? The English killed him. He wanted and fought for an independent Scotland. You could argue that. It was a little while ago, though. I wouldn't hold on to that too much. I mean, there's been a lot of water under the bridge since William Wallace was around, and there's been a thing called the Parliamentary Union, and there's also, before that, there was the Union of the Crowns. In fact, this year, 2023, is the 420th anniversary of the Union of the Crowns. That was when the Scottish King, James VI of Scotland, who was the son of Mary Queen of Scots, when he became King of England as well. And he declared himself to be King of Great Britain. And ever since then, the historians have always argued over what's the proper terminology to call him, but we call him James VI of Great Britain because that's how he wanted to be called. And this year is the 420th anniversary of the Union of the Crowns, and of course that was over 100 years before the Union of Parliaments. So that's why we always talk about the Union as extending way back, much further even than 1707, which was the Union of the Parliaments, back to 1603, which was the Union of the Crowns, and of course going even further back than that to the unions of the small kingdoms throughout the British Isles, going back as well, of course, to the English-Welsh Union. And we have these greeting cards here to mark this year. Wherefore we have thought good to discontinue the divided names of England and Scotland out of our regal style, and do intend and resolve to take and assume unto us, in manner and form hereafter expressed, the name and style of King of Great Britain. The proclamation on the 20th of October 1604 by the Scots King James VI, after becoming also the King of England. And on the back we have a little bit of history for you as well, and you get these, the blank inside, you get these at our shop. Somebody says there that they tortured William Wallace. Same guy who's remembering William Wallace. Well, he certainly, there wasn't much of him after they'd finished with him, that's for sure. Somebody says there the people had no say in the Union of 1707. Well, some people had a say, but more to the point, ever since 1707 and ever since the development of parliamentary democracy in our islands, the people of Scotland and England have had a say in the Union, and every time we vote for people to go to the British Parliament, we are confirming our belief in the continuation of the Union, and so we've been doing that ever since the establishment of the concept of democracy. And of course in 2014 we also had a referendum where the majority, a considerable majority, voted to stay in the UK. So, you know, time moves on, Sometimes people think, oh, they like to preserve the nation in aspic, as if I only want to talk about the William Wallace years. If only we could get back to that. If only we could go back to when they hung, drawn and quartered people. Or I only want to talk about the period immediately after 1707 when the Jacobites were about. But the thing is, time moves on. It's eternal. It keeps going. And so things change. And so while the broad mass of people in 1707 never got a say, they've had a say since the establishment of parliamentary democracy. And we had a say in 2014. So you've got to remember that that's always, time moves on. But some Scottish nationalists, and it is them, they do not see the movement of history. They don't understand that. Unionists are not like that. Unionists understand that time moves on, that things develop. But Scottish nationalists, for some reason, they just want to stay in the past. Maybe it's a human trait. I don't know. I don't know why they're like that, but they are. So yeah, let's get up and we'll just quickly run through what we did last year just so that you're aware of it. What we did in 2022, there we go. Action in 2022, 9 Jubilee Street stalls. 10 SNP marches counted accurately and recorded. 2 counter-presence events launched by A Force for Good at these marches. 1 colourful Bruce to Elizabeth, our Great British Monarchy celebration rally in Stirling. 1 Stand Up to Sturgeon action on the 24th of August outside the Newtown Theatre. Videos from that went viral. Our Stay in the UK rally on the 23rd of November outside Holyrood. We got over 250,000 video views on our own platforms alone as a consequence of that particular event. And we also celebrated our 10th year birthday party. Our video broadcasting has been off the chain. 44, this is the 45th weekly 1 hour Good Evening Britain broadcasts on all our digital platforms. 44 professional audio only podcasts. 160 shorter videos on YouTube. 13 live outdoor broadcasts. And latterly 9 YouTube shorts and 3 specially edited videos. Plus an additional 282 videos uploaded onto TikTok. What an amazing visual display of pro-UK positivity. And published 3 issues of our magazine Union Heart, including a special edition to celebrate the Queen's 70th. 32 articles on our website. 32 articles. And 11 email updates. That doesn't even, we don't even mention there the reach of our social media channels, our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram channels, and the reach of our TikTok. Our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter reaching over 500,000 a month. And our TikTok in December had almost 900,000 video views on it. That's almost 1 million video views in the month of December alone. So we're really knocking it out the park. Absolutely. And that growth will continue throughout 2023. Take my word for it. As a consequence, of course, of our crowdfunder as well. And money that we raise in the coming months also. Because we're in this for the long haul, and we're in this to win this, and we are not going away. We are here to stay. I'm glad to tell all of you that. If you invest in us, you can be sure we will deliver. Alan says, time moves on, but the Scottish nationalists don't. Absolutely. Leah says, thanks for the prize in the post last month. You are welcome, Leah. Glad you got it in all the postal chaos that's going on. Stuart says the Nats want their freedom. Susie says don't forget the like button. If you like this, like it and share it. Comic Toon Productions. Marshall Bourne says, hello mate, I'm new to this and I'm already agreeing to your unionist ideas. Derek says keep up the great work. Arnie says the fact the SNP are backing lowering the age of consent and calling paedophile minor attracted persons is enough for anyone to leave and reject the SNP. It's disgusting. Susie gives a shout out to Comic Toon Productions, says it's always good to meet new folks on this channel. Rita says, yes, 12th of January, Alistair. Yes, well, that was the Glasgow Cabbie event, which is being organised. He's calling it Leave Our Kids Alone, and it's about what the last poster there was saying. And it's taking place outside the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh on Thursday, the 12th of January at noon. And we are not in any way organising it or anything like that, but it's been brought to our attention, and so we're giving it a little bit of publicity, and we would encourage anybody to go along and show your support to Glasgow Cabbie, who has been a real tower of strength in this particular matter. He had a message on Facebook saying, quote, "Can the Scottish media ignore this demonstration and continue to pretend all is well with politics and the people of Scotland, or do they come along and cover what will be a truly outstanding and peaceful protest in the capital of Scotland?" There you go, 12th of January at noon. On You Go says, did you vote for Brexit? Absolutely. I voted personally for Brexit, and you know what was interesting? Before Brexit, A Force for Good did not get involved really too much in that debate, because we know there was unionists for and against and so on. So we just thought, well, let's see where the cards fall, and we as an organisation didn't promote it one way or the other. However, as soon as the result came out, and as soon as it was clear that the Scottish nationalists were not going to accept the result, and as soon as it was clear that the Scottish nationalists were trying to weaponise the result against the United Kingdom, then clearly we as a unionist group had to choose a side then. Okay, so we didn't have to choose a side until the SNP forced us to choose the side. And ever since then, we have used making a great British Brexit one of our aims. Which brings us on quite nicely to the next point that I wanted to talk about, because Brexit was a vote of confidence in our ability in the United Kingdom to shape our future as an independent, sovereign nation, and a choice that few of the members of the European Union seem willing and able to make. But it was a vote of confidence, and of course the Scottish nationalists ever since have been weaponising it and trying to use it as the reason why Britain is claiming that Britain's not succeeding as a consequence of it. And it's fair to say that our politicians have not yet fully embraced the potential and the possibility of Brexit, but we didn't really expect them to, because it was a people's revolution against the political class. The political class in the Tories and in the Labour parties did not want Brexit, and most of them still do not want Brexit. So when they got Brexit and when they had to deal with Brexit, they have not yet properly had the ideology or ability to properly exploit it for good, which is a pity. And we'll just have to see how that pans out in the long term. And it may be a few years yet before a political class develops that is inspired by the concept of British freedom and independence. That may take some time to develop, because certainly since the early 70s, the British political class was globalist and continues to be globalist minded. And you know, always taking the easy route as well. Always taking the easy route. Short-termists, that's a real problem that's plagued Britain for years, all my life. The short-termism of politicians. And I'm not letting the SNP off the hook here, but just generally politicians are short-termists. They don't plan for the long term. They think like 5-10 years away is like a lifetime. But no, it's just the blink of an eye. But they don't plan for 10 years because they reckon, well, in 10 years we're not going to be around. It's going to be another party that will be in. And so that's one of our reasons why we've got a crisis at the moment, is because of lack of planning, lack of energy planning for just now. 10 years ago, David Cameron, or slightly longer, was saying, oh, we're not going to invest in new nuclear power stations because it wouldn't come online until 2020. 8 years away by his reckoning, so he's not going to be bothering to plan for that. So, but, the year rolls around and we don't have it, and we needed it. But it should have been built years ago. So this is what we're facing in Britain. Politicians of low calibre. Short-termists. Anyway, I'm not saying anything there that we don't already know. Alan says, regarding Brexit, he voted to stay, but if a vote was held again, I'd stay out based on the way they have treated Great Britain and Northern Ireland after the vote. That's true. Rita says, Alan, I am the same. I voted to remain, but would now vote to leave. In that regard, Stuart says, the UK is a world economic power. London has more credibility than Frankfurt or Paris. Talking about the Tories and government, politicians in general, and the way that they look at things. And we've always had this idea about unionists. You can divide unionists into herbivores or carnivores. Politicians, that is, unionist politicians, herbivores or carnivores. And David Frost, Lord Frost, is definitely one of those carnivores. And he wrote an article here. He goes, Brexit was a vote of confidence in Britain. That's where I got that phrase, by the way. Brexit was a vote of confidence in Britain. And he's talking here, he's a conservative peer. And so this article is addressed to the Tory party. Now, leaving out the politics of that and whether you're Tory or not, he does make some very good points in here about strategy, which I really want to stress. And we face this in Scotland because many of the advisors to the British government are what we would call unionist herbivores, which is that they don't want to create a fight. They think the best thing to do is just to try to accommodate Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP and try to be reasonable. And presumably, everybody who's looking on will see how reasonable you are and will go, well, do you know what? I like these really reasonable people. They're so nice and reasonable. And what he's saying is, no, that's not actually going to get you the bread and butter at the end of the day. It's just going to get you starving in a corner. And he puts it like this. Those who advocate a focus on stability, on calm, on managerialism, often seem to believe current political and economic forces must be accommodated, not changed. But politics is about more than adapting to the environment. It is about changing it, about persuading and about acting so voters can believe that another reality is possible, that minds can be changed, that problems can be solved. That often requires confrontation, not appeasement, determination, not conciliation. The coming year has to be one for those things. Very good point. Very good point. Politics is about more than adapting to the environment. And the herbivores which advise the British government are all about adapting to the environment, not about changing the environment for good. To promote, they are about promoting accommodation in the belief that they'll be seen as the reasonable ones, and as if somehow somebody's going to come forward and congratulate you for that. Congratulations for losing. You lost the debate, you lost the prize, but you were extremely reasonable in losing it. So well done you for being reasonable in your loss. No, man. No. Let's remember the SNP has no trouble being heard. It has no trouble being loud. It has no trouble upsetting the apple cart. And people flock to it, and they hear it, and they see it because it's the noisy one. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I once remember reading that in a Charlie Brown cartoon, and I read it as like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's brilliant. Things you learn from Charlie Brown cartoons. But I've never forgotten that. So, our advice in the coming year to the British government, and indeed to the British Parliament and to all the political parties who are for keeping the UK together, is do not seek to accommodate the SNP. Remember, they are your political opponents. You do not want to do what they want to do. You want to stop them from doing it, if it is about breaking up the United Kingdom, or if it might potentially lead to that. And you have to put up a fuss, okay? You have to complain. You have to try to stop them doing it. You have to be ready for the fight. You have to be a carnivore. Think of all the times when the British government in the past could have put up a fight. Remember during the back in 2020, okay, when Nicola Sturgeon tried to stop people travelling out of Scotland. She, of course, had no political power to do that, but she wanted to put it about to give people the impression that she could stop people travelling out of Scotland, but she could not. But the British government never came forward. Boris Johnson at the time never came forward and said, excuse me, just to clarify, you're not allowed to do that. He never did that, because he didn't want the fight. Okay, he weaseled out of that. And so now we've got lots and lots of people who literally think that Nicola Sturgeon has the power to shut the country down, to stop people getting out of Scotland. Okay, so the British government wouldn't even turn up for the fight for that one. Now, they've had a wee victory at the Supreme Court, but they did not take that to the Supreme Court. That was the SNP who forced that fight on them. The British government never initiated it. It was the SNP who took it to the Supreme Court to get a decision, and they lost. There's a fight coming up, possibly with the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, the Gender Recognition Reform Act, as it now is. Well, it's still a bill because it hasn't got royal consent yet. But there's a fight coming up with that. Will the British government rise to that, or will they just sit on the sidelines grumbling about it? So far they've been grumbling about it, which is a little more than they normally do. But will they actually rise to have a fight on that particular one? We would say that they should definitely, because that's a win-win situation, because even the SNP supporters are divided on the rights and wrongs of that particular bill. So the British government have got nothing to lose by simply asserting the dominance of the British Parliament on that particular issue. That's just a little bit of a strategy there. Always be a unionist carnivore, not a unionist herbivore, because it is the carnivore that gets the meat at the end of the day. That would be our advice to the British government as we enter into this great British unionist year 2023. We're going to announce the Crowdfunder total. That's the first thing that we are going to do. Now, do we have a Crowdfunder total? There we go. Crowdfunder total equals £2,571. That's on the online Crowdfunder at crowdfunder.co.uk. Now, during the time that the Crowdfunder ran, we also got an extra £318 there from PayPal and cheques received so far. And so that comes to a grand total of 2889, which is 32.1% of our needs. 32.1%. So just a little over 1% away from a third of our needs. So folks, that's good going. That's good going, especially in the current environment. So a big thank you to everybody who has contributed to the Crowdfunder, whether online or PayPal or cheques. And some of your cheques may not yet have been received because everything's very slow these days. So we probably almost certainly will hit 33% when other cheques that are still to arrive in the office come in. So very pleased with that. Thank you very much to everybody who's given, and of course thank you very much to everybody who gives during the year as well via things like our Union Supporters Programme or one-off donations at any time, or who buy our merchandise. We're very grateful for all the support that people are given in whatever way they can, and some people simply prefer to come to our events as well. In other words, thank you to all our supporters. So much appreciated. So much appreciated. So that's a good win. Let's call that, let's say we hit our target there. 1/3 of our yearly needs. Excellent stuff. Thanks very much. That's really going to help, especially in the first half of 2023. I'm pleased to say that's really helped to assure us. Alan says, well done. Arnie says, brilliant. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, the news about next week is that next week the directors and the team will be meeting and just figuring out our agenda and our plans for 2023. We're also going to maybe try to maybe change studios around a little bit just to jazz things up a bit also, and all that's to be decided, but it will be decided next week. So we're not going to be broadcasting next Wednesday, but we will be back the next week, and we'll keep you in touch with just when exactly that's going to be as we begin our series of programs for 2023. And they're going to be good, and we're really going to blow them all out of the water this year. I've got a good feeling about this year. It's going to be the year when the Scottish nationalists start to fail in their overreach, because they've overreached and they believe that they're going to try to turn 2024 general election into a referendum, but that's going to backfire on them, and we're going to be here along with others to make sure that it does backfire on them, and 2023 is the year that it begins to backfire on them. We're so happy to tell you that good news. So we're not going to be here next Wednesday, but keep an eye out, and we will keep everybody informed of just when the new series of programs for this year will be starting. So folks, thank you all again. Thank you to the team. Great team. You've been fantastic during 2022. In 2023 we're going to have more, at least 3 more Union Hearts, one of which is going to be dedicated to the Union of the Crowns, one of which will be dedicated to the Coronation, one of which will be dedicated to Busting Indie Myths Volume 2, and we're also, wait for this, we're aiming to write our much heralded book this year, okay? Our book, our big book this year, and that will, God willing, be coming out towards the end of the summer. But great stuff lined up, and we are getting ready to fight the good fight with all of our might. So thanks folks. It just remains for me to say, on behalf of the directors and team at A Force for Good, we wish you all a thoroughly unionist Great British 2023. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the King. See you next time.